Well, I'm Miramar Mayor Wayne Messam, and I would like to thank each and every one of you, our residents, as well as the contractor community and our 4 PACE providers and city staff for coming out this evening. A little history about the PACE program here in the city of Miramar. About, I think, maybe 3 years ago, the city of Miramar, I proposed to the Miramar City Commission to authorize a program that the Florida legislature allowed to provide alternative funding for renovations to properties in the state of Florida through a property assessment. And I was aware of this program because a few other cities across the state had already authorized the program. I thought it was a need in the city of Miramar because the city of Miramar, on an annual basis, we receive federal and state funding, primarily through, on the federal side, some of you may be familiar with CDBG funding, which is Community Development Block Grant funding from the federal government, which continues to be under assault, especially under our current president's administration. And that funding allows for communities to apply funding for home rehabilitation, commercial rehabilitation, economic development initiatives in various municipalities. In the city of Miramar, we prioritize those dollars to help residents to renovate their properties. Now, because the demand is so high, we never have enough. We always have more applicants than available funding. And the funding is issued on a first come, first served basis. So if you're not in the line or don't have all of your cost estimates and ready to go to permitting, you oftentimes are left out. So short of having a grant, when I heard about the PACE program, and you'll find out a little bit more about it, how it works, I thought it would be a great opportunity because short of having all of the cash necessary to do your own renovations, you could use this program because of the way it is structured. It allows for financing of your property improvements without any, I guess, requirements on your amount of income, your work history, those types of things. They use other types of measures that allows the underwriting for the financing of the property. So I figured that there may be a percentage of our community that may be able to participate. So instead of just leaving residents to the mercy of the markets to deal one-on-one with the service providers, I wanted to have this workshop to create a friendly environment so that the community can learn about the program, a little bit about the history, how it works, so you can know the framework of what is available to you. Now, after you receive the information, then now you can determine if this is an option that you would like to pursue further. The city has authorized 4 service providers, and you'll get a chance to hear from them in a moment. And the city has authorized these firms. They all meet the state requirements in regards to being able to operate within the state. Now, the city of Miramar does not endorse one of the service providers over the other. That's a choice that you have to make. But what we are offering is an opportunity for you to hear from them so that they can answer some questions that I will have, as well as have an opportunity to answer questions that you may have, because we have a mic here and you'll have an opportunity to answer some questions. Now, finally, before I go to our next section of the program, last year alone, when I became aware that there was approximately $9 million of PACE projects completed in the city of Miramar, I thought that was staggering because all of that activity took place without any formal marketing from the city. or any awareness other than what may come out of the mayor's office and some of the, if you're on my email list, you may hear about the program. And I saw that as an opportunity, as an economic development opportunity. I know many of my neighbors, your neighbors in the community are plumbers, roofers, electricians, and I said, well, it'll be a great opportunity as well to introduce our local trade contractors to these service providers to get information on how they can become one of their qualified vendors to be able to do some of this work. Because to me, it just makes sense if a Miramar roofer or a plumber or electrician can help our neighbors fix their homes. We're circulating dollars within our community, and it's an economic development opportunity for the city. So just by show of hands, if you are a trade contractor, just so we can know if you're an electrician, plumber in the trade industry, if you could raise your hand just so we can have an idea. All right, don't be up, come on, everyone raise your hand. It's not a time to do this, so we can know. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have a few contractors in the room, and I do know that there are some others are here that may not have necessarily raised their hands because they're probably here as a resident as well and want to get some information. So, but that's okay. But again, thanks so much for coming out. We're starting about 10 minutes early, and our goal is to be, we're going to allow as much time for everyone who has a question to ask questions, but if we can finish early, that'll be great as well. All right? Okay. So, next on our program, I would like to bring forward Mr. Eric Silva. He's the director of our Community and Economic Development department. That department is over our all the permits, over the building official, economic development in the city. So there's a lot of hats that Mr. Silva wears, but tonight he's going to give an overview of the PACE program. So before we meet our service providers, that you can have a general understanding of what the program is. Okay? All right, Mr. Silva.
Thank you, Mayor Messon. Good evening, everyone. As Mayor Messon mentioned, I'm just going to give you an overview of what the PACE program is, and then I will turn it over to our panel for a more detailed discussion. Property assessed clean energy. The main purpose of the PACE program is to provide for energy efficient, water efficient improvements to your house. And this was something that was passed by the legislature. And it can be for energy type improvements, wind resistant improvements. And it basically gives property owners another option to improve their property. The different types of improvements. It could be for solar panels, air conditioning improvements, roofing, new windows and doors, hurricane windows and doors that are also energy efficient, lighting improvements. If you want to switch to energy efficient lighting throughout your house, it's eligible for that also. Window treatments, insulation. Insulation is very popular with this program also. The program started in the city in about the mid 2016, and since that time it's been very popular, much more popular I think than we anticipated. And we've had over 400 projects and almost $9 million worth of improvements. A brief history of how the program started. As part of the program, the city must agree to join a provider. So in 2016 in May, the city agreed to join 3 different providers. And just a few months ago in November, the city joined a 4th provider program. And the reason why we joined 4 programs was to provide for competition. And that's, of course, a benefit to the community because then you get competition for financing, competition for contractors, and that helps you get the best deal out there. This flow chart explains the role of each of the parties involved. The program originates in the state statutes. It was passed through the legislature. And the city's role is really more of a facilitator to link the property owners, to link the contractors to the programs. So at the city, we evaluated several different programs. We talked to our partners at Broward County and other cities to find out what they were doing, to find out their experience with these different programs. And as I mentioned, we agreed to join 4 different programs. So we've set up that link for the homeowners and the contractors. And now the work is actually directly between the homeowner, the contractor, and the program that provides the financing. The city at this point is involved not very much. Our main role is to make sure everything's going well. We can, the agreements with these providers provide for different things for us to track things and keep track of how it's going. But the main flow of traffic now and the main flow of information, the financing, everything is directly through the program and the property owner. Some things to consider as a property owner, just like when you're shopping around for a new car for interest rates, you should always, shop around for improvements to your home. So you should compare the rates and the fees. An important thing to remember is any improvements to your house, especially if they're, to windows or roofs, they're going to bring up the value of your house. So that's important in the future if you're thinking about selling or doing anything else with your house. And the way this program works, it's not like a traditional loan where you have to go to a bank and you pay it back like a home equity loan. It's actually on your tax bill. That's what will show up. So you have to keep that in mind also when you're shopping around. The City of Miramar, on our website, on our department's website, the Community Economic Development Department, we have some basic information about the program, and then we have direct links to the different providers. Their emails and phone numbers are there, so you can go ahead and read about it more on our website. And now I'll turn it back over to Mayor Messam, and I'll ask all the different providers to come up and take their seat for the panel discussion.
So, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome our 4 service providers, and I'll start with just introducing who they are. And our first service provider is Alliance Energy, NRG, and I think it's they're represented by Chris. Yes, Chris Scoville. So let's welcome Mr. Chris Scoville from Alliance Energy. Our next service provider is Y-Green, and Y-Green is represented by Mr. Ricardo Rodriguez. Our third provider is Renew Pace, Kevin Maggs. And I think also with Y-Green is Tony Escalona. Yes, we didn't want to leave Tony out. And our fourth provider is Renovate America, represented by Mike Anfield. Right, so gentlemen, thanks so much for coming out. And I'll just lay out some ground rules. We'll have about probably 8 or 9 questions that I will throw out. I'll give, everyone won't necessarily, be required to answer every question. However, if there's something that you do want to add on a particular question, feel free to do so. But do know that each firm will have an opportunity to answer questions. And then after that, then we'll follow our round robin of Q&A with questions from the community. Now, again, this session is to be informative. Also, if there's any members from the public that have questions, like for example, you may hear rumors or myths or things like this. This is a safe environment just to be able to ask those questions. And then anything as it relates to the state statutes and interpretation in terms of an opinion, in terms of the authorization of the program, we do have at our disposal representatives from our city attorney's office they're not here to provide anyone legal advice, but more so just clarifications and definitions of the program and how it works and the entitlements and what is called from the state statutes, as well as the resolution that allowed it to take place in the city of Miramar. Okay, so without further delay, I would like to ask the first question to Alliance NRG. Just in general, what are just some of the benefits of PACE, and what would you say are pros and cons of the program?
Well, we're only going to talk about the pros.
No, we're going to talk about everything.
No, we're going to talk about the cons. Can everybody hear me out there? Yes. I don't need a microphone, do I? Well, I'll start off, let's talk about the pros. So, believe it or not, I know I don't look that old. I've been in finance for about 26 years. I did the math because I started in Aventura, North Miami Beach, and I have my original leather bag that I just retired this year. And I know how much I bought it, I know where I bought it. It's that old. So I lead into that by saying the pros and the cons. Pros, I've been in finance for a really, really long time. And this is probably one of the neatest, coolest, simplest programs that I've probably ever seen. And I mean that in all seriousness. Typical traditional financing, which our company also offers, we're not here to talk about that tonight, will require credit scores and proof and ability to repay. We call that a debt to income, DTI, right? So typically financing programs out there have underwriting guidelines. You need to have a credit score to get money, or you need to have a debt to income ratio to get approved. This particular program does not have that, okay? Which helps out folks that cannot qualify for traditional financing. So your roof's got a leak, there's water coming in, that can seriously, seriously damage your home, right? And if you have nowhere to turn, credit card, money to borrow, cash under the mattress or in the mattress, please no IRS people here, this is a great solution for that. So I would say that would probably be one of the #1 pros. As far as a con, with all due respect, it's financing. It is an assessment on your home. It's a non-ad valorem, voluntary assessment. And as we all know, it's important to pay our bills, right? Okay, so it's important to pay this assessment back, which is on the form of a tax. So you want to make sure that you do pay your taxes on an annual basis, which this will be a part of. It's not a con, it's just something that you have to be aware of. To make sure that if you do own your home free and clear, that you set that money aside to pay your taxes. Or if you do have a mortgage and you have an escrow account, that you get that money in your escrow account increase, whatever that monthly amount is, and that'll pay your taxes. I'd say it's a con, it's just something to really be aware of.
Okay, so in simple terms, this program is not based off your credit or your income. So what is it based off of?
Equity in your home.
Okay. So if you have equity in your property, that equity is used as
one of the underwriting guidelines to qualify you for a certain amount on your program. There's a few other items that go along with that, but it's basically primarily based on the equity that you have in your home.
Okay. So as we look at this first question in terms of what is the program and how does it work and some of the pros, well, one of the pros is this alternative funding. Traditional funding looks stringently at your credit, stringently at your employment, stringently at your income to see your ability to repay. But because this is improvement on your property, if you have equity in your property, that is one of the underwriting guidelines that is used to see if you qualify for this program. And I think the question was, well, what's one of the cons, but not necessarily a con, but something you should be aware of is, well, how do you pay back this loan, right? How do you pay back this loan? Well, you pay back this loan through your property taxes. So as you're paying your property taxes, some of you pay your property taxes when you get your bill from the county once a year. Some may escrow with the bank. So those are two ways in which you pay back the loan. So okay, so that'll start off our question. Yes.
So,
well, when you speak, just state your name and the company you are with, so individuals can know who you are.
Okay, Temple, I thought I turned my mic on. I don't know if you guys hear me.
Just have to. It's directional, so
I
you
can
have to speak.
also speak like Chris, but so just to dive in on that a little more, just to make sure that we're all crystal clear on that. That is a really important component that makes PACE different. The way that you pay the assessment back is through an additional line item that will show up on your property tax. It's a voluntary line item. It's voluntary for you to enter into this improvement. But once you enter into it, the line item may be voluntary, but the payment has to be made, like Chris said. So that's just an important point. And if there's probably one thing well, there's probably a handful of things that makes this fundamentally different than standard financing. That is one of them. That's a really important point. And we just want to make sure that hopefully when we get done here tonight, and many of you may say, this is something I want to do, that, we're kind of clear on that. Two things real quick. Ricardo has something to add to that question,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Before he does that, I got to tell you, you do a great job of packing the house, man. This is fantastic. Great turnout. You need a job in the private sector when you become.
No.
And same to Elsie too.
Well, I think
Shout out to Elsie.
the response from the community just shows that there's a great need in the community, and the community is really hungry for information to see if this is an option that they feel may work for them.
And I think another thing for you guys as property owners to keep in mind, another benefit to you is that, all 4 companies here, we vet all the contractors that come to your home. These aren't fly-by-night contractors that are going to come in, get your deposit, and go to Mexico or Cancun on vacation with your deposit and never come back. All those contractors that do the work, they don't get paid until you've signed off that your project is done and is completed to your satisfaction, which is huge. No other bank loan, no other equity loan is going to vet your contractors and hold them to task. All the PACE providers, we have to do that. That's part of the program. That's how it was written into law.
One of the, I want to tag on that, exactly what they're saying. One of the main spirits of PACE financing is consumer protection. So we're going to make sure that you guys don't get injured in a transaction, which is why the mayor has authorized this program, to keep you guys safe. So basically the way it works is the money actually flows through the contractor. It doesn't really go to you. It goes to the contractor, but the contractor's not going to get paid until we speak to you on the phone and verify that the work is done and you're happy. At that point, we'll go ahead and pay the contractor. If there's a problem, we'll work it out between you and the contractor. But the spirit of PACE, the reason it's here, the reason it's going to remain here, is it's all about consumer protection, making sure that you guys are safe in the transaction.
And for those contractors that may be here, we will have an opportunity for you to get information on how you can respectively be able to pre-qualify with each of the 4 firms. Now, we've kind of covered what PACE is and what are some of the underwriting guidelines to be able to get this funding. Another glaring question, an obvious question is, well, what type of repairs can I have at my home? What are some of the qualifying repairs that can take place at my property? Or what's a qualifying renovation or repair? And I'll allow who has not spoken yet. I think everyone has, but
Let's give it to Tony.
Tony, let's go, Tony.
So basically, you can do anything that's hurricane protected, renewable energy, or energy efficiency. So roofing, lighting, HVAC, AC, windows, doors, insulation, anything that makes the home a little bit more energy efficient and hurricane protected.
So you can't remodel your bathroom, but you can put in new windows and doors, you can put on a new roof, you can put on a high efficiency air conditioning system, you can do solar panels, you can do energy saving lighting, stuff that's going to either make your home more energy efficient or safer to live in, or a combo of the two, because you can actually do both. You can put a new roof on and put a new air conditioning system in, or put new windows in and a new air conditioning system in. As long as you've got the value in the property, as long as you've got the equity in the property, you can do both. You can do them all. You've got the roof.
I mean, it really is, what I tell people in my region is that if you're looking at your house and you're saying, okay, is this a PACE product, you gotta ask yourself 3 questions. Does it create energy? Does it retain energy? Or does it harden my structure against the hurricanes? If the answer to that is yes, it's probably a PACE project you're looking at. So if you're going to add a generator to your house because you want to have, don't want to deal with not having power when the power goes out, that's a PACE project. If you're wanting to harden your roof because you have an old roof and you need a hurricane protected roof, that's a PACE project. On top of that, if you do harden your structure, look at your insurance company and call and say, hey, listen, I'm doing this type of project for my house. What type of insurance benefits am I getting because I'm doing this new roof that's going to possibly drop the insurance rate on my house? So when you do start a PACE project, ask your insurance company, call your mortgage lender and find out what options are there and what benefits you get from those other companies and insurance rates. You'll see that if you do a roof, you're probably going to drop your rates on your insurance.
And I think that every homeowner here, clearly remembers what we just went through with Irma, right? Okay, so some of us lost shingles, some of us had water intrusion, so it's an opportune time to really evaluate and assess, you know, if you need to do some of these repairs. And even outside of a hurricane, just to endure the heat, you know, of our hot summer months. You know, if you have windows and in your doors, if your building openings are not, you know, properly sealed, you have your air conditioning running, you have all of your cool air is just escaping out of your house and it's constantly fighting the outdoor elements, and your units continue to run, and it's adding probably 50 bucks a month, you know, to your electric bill, you know, and 50 bucks a month can add up, right? That can add up. So definitely, this is something that, you know, you really need to consider to see if it's something that works for you. The next question I have is, in terms of when you kind of talked about some of the qualifying projects, but can you just walk us through a typical project that you typically see, from homeowner interest to completed project? If someone can just quickly walk us through that process.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
I'll use the mic. Room is filling up. So let's talk about air conditioning. That's a pretty air conditioning. Any air conditioning contractors in here? Okay, good. So if I need expertise, we'll reach out to you. Correct me if I'm wrong. So your air conditioner has died. You call the contractor that is approved with one of the PACE providers up here. Contractor comes to your home. They assess the situation. They see that you need a new air conditioner. You have the ability then to sit down, take application online. Any one of the providers, we all pretty much have very easy systems and tools to help facilitate your application process. More than likely, you're going to get an approval or an application underwrite on the spot to find out what you qualify for. You'll have a contract signed by the contractor to choose that. You'll have your financing in place. The contractor will then go to the county to apply for a building permit to install the air conditioner. Am I right so far? Maybe they have the air conditioner in stock. Maybe they'll be there in about 3 days, right? So they'll be there to install it. They've got their permit. They've passed their 3 days of right of rescission. You've installed the air conditioning. Your financing is in place. At that point, they've got a pulled permit because they had to put the air conditioner in your home. And they've got a certificate of completion that they've signed from one of the providers and a verification call that's gone out to make sure that the air conditioning is installed. And that's when the contractor would be funded at that point, and you'd have your air conditioning installed. Pretty simple?
Yep. So that's a typical process. So now, in terms of, walk us through if the property qualifies, if it's based off of the equity. Walk us through, because we talked about this equity thing. What does that mean?
So
How does that
I'll go
work?
ahead and jump in on that one. So, you know, as Chris mentioned, we all have very similar, very easy to operate application processes. The first thing that we do, we like to call it know before you go. So we'll put in your address, or you'll put in your address, and it'll tell if you're in an approved area, because not all areas are approved for PACE. All of Broward County is. But it'll tell if your property's in an approved area. It'll also do a very quick equity check on your home to see if you have the available equity. It's not 100% accurate, but it's accurate about 90% of the time. And then if everything is in alignment there, you're in a PACE area, you've got the available equity, it'll then move to the application process. And the application process, and again, it's all online, it's very simple. First name, last name, social security, phone number, email address, how much you make, and if you're full-time employed, part-time employed, retired or not. That's the entire application. We're not asking for pay stubs, we're not asking for bank statements. We're not going to call your employer and verify. We just want to know that if you are working or if you're on retirement or disability or anything like that, and what your annual income is. Typically, we'll have an approval in, can be as little as 5 minutes and can be as much as 30 minutes, but it's right then and there on the spot. So you're not going to be waiting, with traditional financing. You've got to wait for the bank to get back to you. It could be a couple days. You've got to give them all the income documentation. That is not this process. So it's very, very quick. You'll know by the time that contractor salesman walks out the door, you'll know if this is gonna happen and how quickly.
So in the audience, just so I can have a feel, do we have any commercial property owners present? Any commercial property owners present? Do commercial properties qualify?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So it's the same criteria as it would be resident. And then, it's kind of going back to the last question. If you don't feel comfortable going online and filling out all this information, your contractor can definitely help you do that, or you can call into any of the base providers. We have inside staff that will go ahead and walk you through that whole application process right there on the phone. Depending on the provider, you're looking at maybe about 5 to 10 minutes to tell you, yes, you're approved, and this is how much you have available. Then at that point, you get the quote from the contractor, and then the process continues. So it's a very, very easy process, just with one phone call.
And your ability to call in is 7 days a week, till 9, 10 o'clock at night, depending upon the provider.
Just one more thing, just to step back, and it occurs to me I neglected to do your simple instruction, which is to identify myself, Mike Antile, Renovate America. Just to take one step back, just to make sure that we're all clear on this, and I think that we probably are because we've said it a couple of times, but the way to look at the companies that are sitting here at the table is the best way to look at us is like banks, right? We are competing for your business in that sense. We want to finance the projects in that sense. And we also compete to earn the business of the contractors that are here, that are in Miramar, that are in Broward County, so on and so forth. So we are the ones that will take the application, give you the approval, so on and so forth. We're the ones that will partner with the county in terms of that line item tax assessment. And we are the ones that will hold the contractors accountable ultimately, hold their feet to the fire ultimately. But that relationship between you and the contractor is still going to exist. They're still the ones that are coming in, doing the assessment of your needs and so on and so forth. We, as Kevin said, we ultimately are the ones that pay the contractor, but the best way to look at us is banks, and that's kind of who you see sitting in front of you. So I just wanted to be clear on that, kind of the line between us and the contractors and how it all works.
Well, I see a big elephant in the room, and I'm going to free her. And I know there's another question that's bubbling out from the community is, how much does this cost? What are the interest rates? What is this gonna cost me? It sounds really good, but what are the interest rates? How much does this cost? And you all don't have to answer at the same time.
Are you guys sure you want me to go first? Interest rates vary between the providers up here. There's a 5-year, a 10-year, a 15-year, a 20-year, and sometimes in some circumstances a 25 years. Does anybody do 30 years in Florida?
We do 25.
We do 25.
Okay, so you have terms, and with each one of those terms, there's different interest rates. My suggestion is if my mom was sitting here, I would tell her to shop before you buy. You're going to go buy a Camaro, right? You just don't walk into the first lot and buy it. You want to vet us. You want to vet your contractors, all right? That's exactly what I would tell my mother. So my suggestion to the audience is vet us. We're separate financial institutions. The program itself, from a statute point of view, is the same. The underwriting guidelines are the same, but there are some differences in it. So vet us, vet your contractors. That's a consumer protection. So now to answer your question, our interest rates in our program start at 0.99% and go to 5.99%. That's a good question. The terms, rates, and contractors' offerings. Contractors that you go through have the ability to offer you different rates and different programs. Like you go to a bank and get a mortgage, you have the ability to get a mortgage rate at this or a mortgage rate at that, a mortgage rate at a different term, a mortgage rate at a different amortization. It's kind of how we're structured with our institution. That's our rate areas.
You would have to have enough equity to cover the amount of the loan.
It's not a loan, it's an assessment, and the algorithm to determine what your maximum eligibility on your home is based on the equity, and it's also based on a mortgage. So there's a balance in there, and there's a system when you apply. It's going to look at the just value that's given to you from your county assessor. I believe the statute's what, 20% times the just value, right? So there's then the PACE statute that's what the maximum eligibility is. Then it's going to also look at your mortgage. It's going to say, do we have enough room to extend X amount of dollars to this consumer? Because PACE in Florida is beautiful. They built in an automatic protection. They don't want you going over 100% loan to value of your home, because we don't want 2008 happening all over again, folks.
Right.
It was awful. So thank goodness Florida did that. The systems and every one of ours will kick out a number and make sure that we keep you within the guidelines and offer you a maximum that you're allowed to have as an assessment on your own. Trust the system. All of us have an operating system that will kick out a number.
Okay, I'm still confused about whether the assessment that the equity must cover the assessment in order to qualify.
Yes, you have to have enough equity in your home to qualify for an assessment.
So you can go up to 100% of the value of your home, but no more than 20%. So if your first mortgage, let's say, makes up 80% of the value of your home, that remaining 20% can all be used towards a PACE assessment. We have a minimum loan requirement of $5,000 and a maximum of $250,000.
Okay. Thank you.
Just a couple of things I would add on that. So Renovate America, I can't honestly say that we could get you down to 0.99%. I think that our rates will probably be somewhere in the 3 to up to 8% range. The way that the rates are determined really has a lot to do with the term. Essentially, as Chris I think touched on, we're not going to do a 25-year term for an air conditioner, but we might for a roof. And that's where you'll see a lot of the difference in the rates and so on, and also kind of how we interact with the contractors. But two important points to remember. These are fixed rates. So, we are financiers. I don't think we're here to say that this is the absolute cheapest money that you can get on the street. But it's actually pretty competitive with a lot of what you can get out there. And this is a fixed rate, so fixed for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, whatever the case is, as opposed to going and getting a Home Depot credit card or whatever the case is, or a HELOC, and all of a sudden you're getting into a variable interest rate 2-3 years down the road. That's what we're trying to avoid putting people in a position where they're getting caught upside down because of an interest rate shock. And the other thing, and I think this is true for all of us, is there's no prepayment penalty. That's true for everybody, right? So a lot of advantages, but to answer your question.
If I can just jump in on it, this actually is the cheapest money on the street for what we ask you. Again, we're not asking for pay stubs, we're not asking for bank statements, we're not calling your employer and verifying, we're not doing any of that. We're asking you, do you work, full-time, part-time, and whatever, how much do you make? It's all based on the available equity in your property. Think of it as though we're loaning the money to your property, because that's what we're doing. That's why we don't have a minimum credit score requirement. We do require a credit score, okay? You could have a 100 credit score, okay? Not pay any of your credit cards. But as long as your mortgage is paid on time, your property taxes are paid, you don't have any involuntary liens or judgments against you, any small claims court judgments, anything like that, you don't have any of that, we're gonna do the deal. We're gonna do the deal. You may not pay anybody else, you don't pay your car, your credit cards, nothing. We're still gonna do the deal, give you a very competitive interest rate with no prepayment penalty and very favorable terms. So it is, in my opinion, it is the cheapest money that you can get on the street.
We're going to allow the public to ask some questions. Just have a couple more questions that general questions we'll ask, and I'll open it up for the audience to be able to answer. And so for the benefit of everyone attending, I will ask, if you do have a question, if you will come to our mics, because your question may be the question of someone else, and so that they can be able to hear the question. So if you have your questions, just jot them down, commit them to memory, and you have an opportunity to ask them in a second. And another thing just to keep in mind is that when the Florida legislature passed the statute that enabled the PACE program, is because the state of Florida realized that resiliency and energy efficiency is important for the state. And to create this vehicle to make it a bit easier, or to provide an alternative funding for Floridians to be able to replace their roofs and to get more energy efficient AC units and better windows, ultimately helps our state be more resilient. So that's kind of some of the rationale in regards to the rationale about moving this initiative forward. The next question I have is: Have you had any experience with a homeowner refinancing or selling their home with a PACE lien? Does the PACE lien stay with that property? Are there any challenges with that? What are some things that homeowners should be aware of?
Well, I'll do just one thing and then Ricardo can take it. So one of the things that makes PACE unique is it is technically possible to pass this assessment on to the new homeowner. It is not a guarantee. It is not always going to happen like that, but it is technically possible. I think that the best advice that we give is, number one, we're notifying all parties involved, the real estate broker, the mortgage lender, of course the homeowner, so on and so forth. So everybody is totally dialed in about the fact that there is this assessment that's on the property before you can transfer it to the new homeowner. There are scenarios, and I don't know the statistics off the top of my head, I want to say it's a third, but one of my colleagues might be able to correct me, where you can actually pass that assessment on to the new homeowner. The founding concept behind PACE, which Kevin talked about, is the whole idea is it's to get you something that will save you money or save you in your insurance premiums. And so the principle is if we can have savings in our house, we can also pass that savings on to the new homeowner and pass the assessment on to them as well. But to be clear, at that negotiation table, it is very possible that you will be required to pay the PACE assessment down. And it really, in our experience, is something that is kind of fluid and happens during that negotiation process. Ricardo, is that, did I steal your thunder?
No, I mean, it was pretty much the same question. I mean, really the same. The issue comes up is if your sellers, or I mean, if your buyer's bank won't accept that PACE assessment, that's where an issue arises. If the person you're buying the house or the bank you're refinancing with won't accept the assessment, there's something we as the companies can do about it, and they will force you to obviously pay off that assessment prior to selling or buying or refinancing your home. Now, with that said, it literally becomes a negotiation between you and the buyer and seller. Because usually in the neighborhood, you do have the nicer home with the better roof, the nicer windows. Your property is probably the nicer one in the neighborhood. The truth is, at that point, you either raise or drop your selling price to be able to pay off that assessment as part of the sale.
But if you think, I'm sorry, but if you think of it like traditional financing, where if PACE wasn't here and you wanted to go ahead and replace your windows, most people would go get a home equity loan, okay? Well, when you go to sell your house, you've got to pay off that home equity loan, okay? So this is no different that way, except that it's got the feature that you can pass it on to the new owner because it's in the property tax bill. It's not on you. A PACE assessment, by the way, a PACE loan is never going to show up on your credit report because the money's not loaned to you, it's loaned to your property. So it's not going to impact your ability to borrow any money in the future. Nobody's going to come back and say, well, you can't borrow anymore because you've got this PACE assessment on top of your mortgage. They're never going to see it. So when you go to sell the home, you can look at it just like you would an ordinary second mortgage. You'd have to pay it off. Or as Ricardo mentioned, you can negotiate it. Hey, I've got a $20,000 PACE assessment. If I just put windows in last year, the windows have a 25-year life benefit. You're going to get all that benefit, you should pay for it. So if you're willing to take my PACE assessment, I'll sell you my house for $200,000. If you're not willing to take my PACE assessment, I'll sell you my house for $220,000. And I'll take that extra $20,000 and I'll pay the PACE assessment off. So it can be completely negotiated. In terms of refinance, it's kind of a 50-50 thing. For the most part, if you've been, and I come from the mortgage industry prior to Renew, if you are paying your mortgage on time, and the bank is happy and you're a good customer for them, they don't want to get rid of you. And so they're going to take a closer look at this, and the possibility exists that they may go ahead and refinance because they want to keep you there, keep you paying. So it's all going to depend upon the market conditions, the temperature of the bank, what kind of customer you have been for them, as to whether or not they'll refinance it.
And one of the reasons why, if there is an issue or challenge with a bank, that's either from a refinance or if you are selling the property and your buyer is coming in with financing and you're trying to pass on that assessment to them, is mainly because the new bank does not want to have a second lien position on the assessment that's already on the property. They want clear title. The bank wants to be in front place. So if there's anything that goes on, that they control the destiny of the property without any other obligations on the property. So I think if residents are clear and understand what the nuances are, it puts you in a better position whenever you're ready to sell the property, or if you're going to refinance the property. You're just in a better, more informed position on how to make the best decision for you. So, but when you go into a situation not knowing, that is when you may run into challenges that only if you knew prior to, you would have taken different actions. Okay? All right. So we already answered the question about if you can pay PACE early, and there's no prepayment penalty, which is good. And at this time, I would like to actually, we're going to go right into the homeowners questions, and then we'll go to the contractor section to see how how contractors can get involved. If for those who can come up to the mic, if you can come up to the mic if you have a question. If we have not addressed your question, this is a great time now to ask your question. Yes, sir.
I don't know, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right. I have two questions. You mentioned the know before you go. I'm assuming that Miramar is an approved area.
Yes.
All right. Question number two. If we're going to shop around, do we need to process the application, go through the application process with all 4 companies? Does that mean that the credit is going to be affected 4 times?
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's saying the credit is important.
Just find out what someone's approved for.
Yeah, but we do pull, okay,
We
so
provide the
let me explain
service?
this. Yeah, let me explain this. So your credit is pulled because we have to verify some information that all 4 companies have to get through your credit, but it's not taken as a consideration. But your credit will be pulled. We need to pull your credit to verify home ownership status and a few other things that we all verify in the underwriting process. So yes, your credit does get pulled. It's not going to be a determining factor, but we do look at your credit because we have to get information that we can only get by pulling your credit.
So think about if it was Chase, Wells Fargo, our local community bank, or our credit union, and you want to get a loan. All of them can provide your loan. So there's investigations and due diligence that you can do prior to engaging whoever you ultimately engage. So get as much information as possible prior to having to commit to, I know there could be a concern about, pulling enough, having too many inquiries on your credit and those types of things. So just do as much due diligence. Every firm has a table. They have multiple booklets and information that you can read up on. You can go on the internet as well to their websites and just check other consumer reports, to see. So obviously, as in any industry, you're going to see good and you're going to see bad, no matter where, whatever industry you look into. But by being able to get, just objective information that we're providing tonight, then you'll be able to balance the information that you're researching so you can make the best decision, for you and your household. Yes, sir.
And something I want to say on that, under the whole premise of being able to shop around, you don't necessarily have to go and have that contractor, each contractor pull your credit. They can do the know before you go, and that will give them the initial equity check, and then you can get your quote from your contractor, and he can quote you an interest rate and so forth, and then you can go to another contractor. Now you haven't pulled any credit yet, because the credit is not going to really affect you. We're either going to do it or not do it. Okay, so it's not going to make your program any better. It's not going to make your interest rate any lower or any higher. It's just if you can't do it with one contractor because of credit, you're not going to be able to do it with another. So go and work your deal out with your contractor, get your price, find out if the equity is there, get your interest rate, look at what the payment, all that can be done without pulling credit. So do all that, and then when you've got the deal that you want to go with, then you go ahead and you sit down, you do the application, you pull the credit, and also it's the effect on the score. It's like when your insurance company pulls credit, okay? And your insurance company pulls credit on a regular basis. It's not read by the credit reporting agencies as an attempt to loan you money, and that makes a big difference in the effect on the score.
There were two questions I did, go ahead, and I
would
have
say
two
that,
other questions I
I
did
mean,
want to
this is
ask.
something I know at our company. You can call our customer care line, which is on our website, and you can ask them what the current rates are for lighting. And I'm sure you guys have the same customer care line that if they were to call and say, hey, you know, what are your current rates right now for this area? I'm sure they can get an answer from our company. That would probably be the fastest way for you to shop around. Would be get on the websites, call those numbers that they have on the website, and just talk to someone live from each of our companies that does the inside sales and ask them those questions.
Many of our residents live along embankments or canals in the city. Are canal walls eligible repair projects under this program?
Unfortunately not.
We get that question a lot.
We're getting some legal, I guess, information on that. We're not 100% sure on that just yet, is the honest answer.
Okay. So right now, probably not, but
We're working on it.
they're seeing if it's an eligible repair.
Wait, are there any attorneys in the room? Check the statute out, see if,
We're trying to get an attorney right now.
Well, you can-
that was an attorney.
Yeah. The other question is, if I live in a condominium association, or let's say a townhouse, and I'm connected or attached to another dwelling, still fee simple, but probably not the condo, but does the program work in those
It's
scenarios?
possible, is the answer. It all depends, like you said. So if you're on a townhouse and you're talking 4 units under one roof, everyone underneath that one unit, every owner would have to be able to qualify.
For a roof.
For a roof. You know, but if you're doing something internally inside your individual unit that doesn't affect the other 4, then yes, you can qualify under you as the homeowner for that one individual unit. So it's tricky when you're in a multi-family.
Ultimately, it'll come down to the homeowners association ruling.
Yeah.
If one wants impact windows, they may make everybody get the same looking window because they don't want it to look different, you know? So air conditioning, sure. Solar panels, boy, that's a tough one because legally they have to allow it, right? But I mean, there's some really interesting nuances when it comes to townhomes and condos.
One of the keys is the individual has to pay their individual property tax.
Yes.
Right.
So it's tricky. So if you're in a multifamily and you're thinking about it, you probably need to get together with your neighbors and, you know, work together to kind of come to one of the companies and figure out how we all work that out. If it is a trickier situation if you're in a single family home.
Do we have any other questions from the? Yes, sir. Good question. Are there any application fees?
No.
No application fees. Yes. No problem. Ask as many as you want.
You said that this thing goes on your taxes. Does this bring it
Yes, the
That's a good question.
Are there any tax attorneys in here? Are there any CPAs in here?
Yeah, well, being that this is tax season, if you haven't filed already, that may be a question you want to ask your accountant or CPA. His question was, since you're repaying this back through your property taxes, are there any tax write-offs? Yes.
There are some tax benefits to it. We tell you to contact your CPA and your tax accountant to talk about that because it is coded in the tax laws.
If you were to go to MiramarFL.gov and put in PACE interest, you will see that the IRS has ruled that interest on a PACE assessment is tax deductible. If you're that person, if you got that tax preparer, and we tell you, we'll all 4 tell you the same thing, check with your tax preparer, because each person's situation is individual, but the IRS has ruled that interest on a PACE assessment is tax deductible.
Okay, so you hear that the interest paid on a PACE assessment is tax deductible, but of course, you should check with your accountant, your CPA, to be able to check for your specific situation according to your tax status.
Can I get one more question?
Yes, they're good questions. You have great questions.
Is there any federal rebates?
No. Can't have your cake and eat it too.
Well, let me dive in that. I'll dive in. I'm not scared. You could have rebates from an air conditioning contractor on a unit. It's got nothing to do with PACE. You could have a tax benefit on solar, but it's got nothing to do with us. So on some of the items that you have possibly installed, there are some rebates or things that might help you out financially, but nothing
related to our program.
And that's
Yes,
what we-
sir.
All right, so we know that paying this back is attached to the taxes, which is going to increase your monthly mortgage payments. If you decided you didn't want that scenario, is there another way for you to pay that?
Pay it off. Pay it off, right?
Besides that,
No.
no matter what, it's attached to your taxes, you each mortgage payment.
Your escrow,
Your escrow.
or if you own your house free and clear, then you just make your payment with your taxes the following year. But you have the ability to also prepay it or pay portions of it, right? You can re-amortize. You don't have to pay it all at once.
Great question.
You wouldn't want to. The reason why you wouldn't want to, and you see me afterward, I'll tell you why. Yep.
Did I see a hand over here? Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. And I'll come back to you, sir.
How long does the program last? Is it just this year, or when's the time, when's the cutoff?
As long as the four of us are alive. No, it doesn't have an expiration date.
Yeah, it's authorized as long as the state of Florida allows it and the city of Miramar continues to have the program.
We're all hoping it lasts forever.
And do know, residents, that these 4 providers are allowed by privilege. It's at the will of the city to allow them. So their incentive is to operate properly, ethically. Obviously, in any business, they want to be successful, so they want to do a good job, and they want to make sure that their subcontractors are doing a good job as well. But if you experience challenges or bad business practices, as the mayor, my first comment is to make sure that you notify the city so that we can be aware, of it. Obviously, your engagement and your arrangement with each one of these 4 providers are private business matters between you and them, but we need to know if it's to see if it's a one-off or if it's habitual business practice to not, honor what we intend the program to be. Okay.
I will just like say something in line with that. We talked about consumer protection. If a complaint comes in, and I'm sure my peers have a similar policy, in my company, if a complaint comes in from someone that, hey, my contractor did something wrong, or I had a situation recently where the very last window the contractor put in, he broke it. And he didn't come back and replace it right away. It was 2 or 3 months later. The homeowner called in and said, I have a problem. This contractor, the very last window he put in, I'm sorry. Is that better?
Yeah.
The last window I'll talk about it. The last window he put in was broken. So when something like that happens, it comes to me, if it's in my area, within 48 hours, I need to go out and make contact with you, take pictures of whatever's going on, and then go visit the contractor and then come back to my company with a resolution. So you're not fighting with that contractor, the contractor's not fighting with you. We wind up being the referee to come in and do whatever we have to do to make sure you're happy, because that's what we want. Our survival depends upon our homeowners being happy with this program.
And I would like to add to that. We all get in situations like that. We had something similar. It was a window where, again, contractor opens up a box. One of the windows was broken. Homeowner calls to say, hey, what's going on? They haven't finished my project. We're like, well, the contractor had to back order the window, get a new window, came in. We asked her, you sign off on your project. Don't worry about it. That contractor's going to come back. Why? Because he hasn't gotten paid yet. So trust me, those contractors want to get paid. They don't get paid until that job is done. You as a homeowner might have to deal with something that happens. If it's a construction project, things happen. But know that from our end, those contractors have every incentive to come back and finish that project for whatever reason that happens, because they want to get paid. And we hold them to the fire, because at the end of the day, your mayor can say goodbye wiring, goodbye renovate, goodbye renew to any of us at any time. And we're not working in the city because of anything that happens. So we're very proactive with our contractors. As long as you as citizens call us and say, hey, there was an issue. We don't know until we hear from you, and give us time to do our due diligence to make sure that we take care of the problem.
And as Chris had said from the very beginning, we all have a very extensive vetting process that the contractors have to go through to come on board. So they've got to be licensed, they've got to have the insurance, they've got to have the experience. We look them up online. We look for Facebook activity. We look for Yelp reviews. We look for things like that. And if we find something that doesn't seem like it's going to be a good fit, unfortunately, we won't bring that contractor on board.
Which I think is a great segue. We do have some contractors here, and I saw some others walk in. And I would like to bring up, each provider provided a slide in regards to how subcontractors can come forward. I mean, not come forward, but can register with each provider. Is it a separate? Yeah, I'll have everyone speak to each one of their slides. So when you see your slide come up, you can speak to it. So.
I've got to turn around because I've got a bad back and neck and all that other good stuff. All right, so let me explain. I'll be very brief. Alliance NRG is our PACE program. Service Finance is our unsecured program. We're kind of a double-edged sword. We've got different types of finance. So if a contractor is coming to my company, which is a Service Finance company, to get enrolled, their first step is to go to Service Finance and get enrolled with Service Finance Company, which has a nuance of probably 10 or 12 different items that they have to qualify for, including a Florida retail installment contract license that they have to get licensed for the state of Florida. Nice, fancy, they can put it on their wall. The next step, once they're enrolled with Service Finance Company and approved, is they'll get enrolled in the Alliance Energy PACE program, which is what I'm representing here tonight. With that, there's only 4 steps. They submit an application, they sign an agreement, and they send a W-9 and a few other little small items. But that's the enrollment process to get enrolled with Service Finance Company and Alliance Energy's PACE program with us for contractors.
Thanks so much. And contractors have a table here, and you can speak one-on-one if you have additional questions with each service provider. Next, Renew Financial.
Yes, so very similar to, and I think you're going to see a similarity between all of our requirements to sign up. As I mentioned, the contractor, he's got to have his appropriate contracting and business license. He's got to meet the insurance requirements. We want to make sure that he's covered and that you're covered if something happens while he's there. We look for time in the business. We look for a minimum of 3 years. We want to make sure that the guys that are doing the work are experienced and can do the job right the first time. We do ask for the W-9. We look for a Better Business Bureau rating. You know, those ratings are very important to that.
Does that automatically disqualify if they don't have a registered Better Business Bureau rating?
Not if we find other supporting materials, such as Yelp reviews, things like that. Training. We have specific training that require contractors to go through and their salespeople, so that when they come out and talk to you about our program, they don't mislead you. They give you the bare facts. So if they talk about the possibilities of tax deductibility on the interest, they're telling you like we did, go to your tax preparer. It is allowed by the IRS, but I'm not a tax person. So we want to make sure they're telling you the right things and not misleading you. We want to make sure contractors are not telling you it's a grant that you don't have to repay, because it's not a grant. Okay, you do have to repay it. So we want to make sure that they're fully trained on how to give you the right information, make you feel comfortable with the decisions that you're making. And the very last one, we look at the actual credit of the contractor, his credit report, and make sure that him and his business has a certain credit score at a certain level to be part of our program.
Thank you. Renovate America.
Hey, all right. Let me make 2 points real quick. As you can see, this slide is very similar to the other 2. The 2 points that I would make before I talk about that slide, though, number 1 is for the homeowners that are here and the contractors that are here, you've actually got a lot of assets in the room tonight. I mean, to have this many people is a bit of an opportunity. We've got all the tables there. I know my team is in the back left corner. Each one of us has our teams here, so seriously, come talk to us before you leave tonight. The other thing I would say, this is important to know, is you don't have to use just our contractors. We do have the vetted contractors. Kevin gave the example. We like to call it, it's called our contractor quality rating system. We call it Moneyball, which is how we come up with the way that we're putting the contractors and how we're qualifying and rating them. You can't buy your way to the top of that list. It's purely organic how we rate the contractors. But if you know that you've been dealing with the same roofer for 15 years, or your neighbor is an air conditioner and you want to give him the business, send him our way. Get him or her kind of registered in our system. Not only is it good for them because they can offer PACE to their other clients down the road, but it'll also give you the ability to continue working with them and so on. Now they have to go through the same registration, the same vetting, the same training and all that. But you can use the same person that you're used to using and send them our way. So with that, our slide is very similar. You know, we want to know about you, we want the licenses and the W-9 and so on and so forth. We'll actually sign an electronic agreement, but our website is where you would start at renovateamerica.com, and we get you signed up. Again, you can talk to any of our folks here tonight.
Thank you. And we have White Green.
And for White it's the same. You know, you'll go through someone that's my position, and I'm a regional account manager. We'll sign you up. You'll go online. You'll fill out an online application. You'll have to submit your insurance, your licenses, everything to our compliance office. Then they'll do the background checks. They'll make sure that there's no outstanding complaints on your Florida license and your personal license. They do a background check to make sure that you're doing business the right way. Then at that point, before you get turned on a list with us, we go out, we train your staff how to use the system, who we are. Once we feel comfortable that, hey, you know the system enough, then at that point, we go ahead and allow you to offer.
Okay.
If I could just say one thing while we're talking about the contractor. So we talked a lot tonight about consumer protecting the contract, protecting you. For the contractors, the benefit for you, very simple, you get paid. Okay, how many times have you had situations where you're midstream in a program and for some reason, a project, for some reason, the money didn't come through that they thought they were going to get, the homeowner. And now you're stuck with, well, I don't have the money, you got half the project done, well, you got the air conditioning equipment installed, and all of a sudden my sister that was going to loan me the money can't do it. What do I do? In our program, you get paid. When you get an NTP, notice to proceed, you're good as gold. You just have to finish out the project and do a good job, and we're going to pay you.
All right, so we'd like to thank all of our service providers for coming forward tonight and providing us some good information. And just a couple of housekeeping matters. Just by a show of hands, does everyone feel at least generally familiar now with the PACE program and what it's about and how it works? And for those who feel comfortable, at least if you're interested, at least being informed enough to get more information, show your hands by raising them. Okay. So if I would have asked that question in the beginning of the meeting, we probably would not have had many hands raised. So, and I have another question? Sure. Okay.
What's the net payment terms for contractors?
Net payment terms.
We fund within 48 hours of receiving the certificate of completion from the homeowner. So we'll do a verification call. So when the job is done, we ask you, the homeowner, to sign a certificate of completion. And everything that we do is e-doc, so you're not really having to do anything and just go online and sign it. We get that back, we're gonna make a phone call to you. Hey, we wanna make sure, Mrs. Smith, that you signed this, that you're done, that you're happy with the work. When we make that call, we fund the contractor within 48 hours of making that call. We don't require a closed permit. We do require a permit number in our system, but we don't require a closed permit to fund you.
Yes, ma'am.
So who the final inspection?
All of the work that requires inspections and permitting by the city, it will still have the same formal, it does not bypass formal permitting and inspections by the city.
Can I ask the group a question?
Sure.
Just by a show of hands, who likes going to Home Depot 2 days before the hurricane comes and try to buy plywood? No? Then get hurricane windows in your house, use PACE to do it. My wife, when she married me, I was already living in my house, and she had never lived in a place with hurricane windows. And so when Hurricane Irma came, our hurricane prep was making sure we had enough to put on the barbecue and enough wine and beer to have while we rode out the storm and watched it through our hurricane windows. So if you don't like going to Home Depot and buying plywood, get a PACE assessment and get hurricane windows and then start enjoying the hurricanes.
Now I know I got a ton of phone calls during Irma, so yes, sir, ma'am.
Yes, do the contractor have to pay for the whole job in order to get paid at the end of the job? I do it. Say for instance, we do HVAC, windows, and the roof at the same time. do the contractor have to pay for the whole, have to waive the whole job before he get paid? Or do we get it at a draw?
I'll answer it for all of us. Contact your regional sales manager and ask that question, because each one of us as a finance company have different type of payment structures for contractors.
Right.
So that answer seems that there's probably some flexibility, so, but talk to each one. Is there? Yes, sir.
Does this program cover like...
One second, I have to, so I can hear the questions, and I'm gonna ask if everyone just keep it down just a little. Yes, sir.
Does this program cover like new parking lots and new fans?
New fans?
And new parking lots?
Parking lots, so parking lots and fans, like ceiling fans? Oh, fence and parking lots, driveways, pavings, and fencing. No, it does not. It's not technically part of the property. Yes.
That kind of goes with that.
Yes,
You can't
ma'am.
follow your bathroom.
Is there any additional fees from the county that's added on to what they're charging?
Are there any additional fees from the county on top of what you're
Right,
charging?
so I'll take this opportunity to brag on Broward County. The counties themselves can charge up to an additional 2%. Essentially, it's for administrative fees, that tax collector role that they play. I mean, there is, a function there. But Broward County actually only charges 0.11, and it's the lowest in the state. So kudos to Broward. It's, that's part of our job, is to keep that fee as low as possible. And it was really nice working with the folks in Broward. In fact, they were kind of realistic about what their expenses were. So you're lucky to be here, I'll say that.
I mean, and the
And
okay, go ahead.
and do you know what the charge is before the person leaves? Like when they come out to the house and whatnot, are we aware exactly what the charge is?
You'll see all the numbers. There's no smoke and mirrors here. You'll see all the numbers before you sign anything. And then we also will do a verification call after you sign your financing documents to review them with you.
Yeah,
To
we
make
don't-
sure that you don't have any unanswered questions, and if you all of a sudden decide, hey, I don't want to do this, well, we'll put the brakes on right away.
We all call you after you guys have signed, and we all do those calls. And you even have, I think it's 3 days after even that. to
Yeah,
say-
3-day right of rescission.
3-day rights, hey, you know what, I thought about it after the call, we're good. It's up until the point when you sign everything and really say we're ready to go is when you're like, hey, the project's already started.
I think I saw one question, then,
Yes, I have a question.
go ahead, ma'am. Then-
Okay, we all know as we start projects, there's mishaps, we discover there's another issue. What happens? You open a roof, it's gonna be replaced, I know that's on the roof, but there's issues that happen.
We all have a change order process. So change orders are acceptable, yes. So a change order, just for those of you who don't know, so a lot of times when you're doing your roof, the roofer comes out, he'll take a look at your roof, he'll measure, he'll climb up in your attic, he'll do the best he can do to make sure he's got a good assessment of what you need. But until you start peeling those shingles off, you don't know what's there. And a lot of times they peel the shingle off and all of a sudden you need 3 or 4 sheets of plywood. Well, he didn't know about that in the beginning, so he couldn't necessarily include it in his estimate. He'll include some plywood in there, but maybe he'll include 2 sheets and you need 4 sheets. So there's a change order process where the roofer's going to say, okay, for 2 additional sheets of plywood, it's going to cost X amount of dollars more. So we have to go in and change your financing documents, but we really don't. We just do an addendum to it. We call you up, we verify with you that you are in acceptance of that change. Then we ask you to sign. Again, it's an e-doc thing, and it goes right through. So change orders are allowable and easy to do.
As long as you have enough equity to hit the match.
Yeah.
Then communication is all by phone call, email, online,
Yes,
all of
all the above.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I want to know how involved are you, you're the loan guys, right? How involved are you with the contractors that are doing these projects?
Almost on a daily basis,
Do you communicate with the homeowners?
when necessary.
All right.
We try not to, because like Chris had said, we're the banks. So, we kind of, sit there in the back and do it. But if there's questions for you, you have questions, anything about your financing or any concerns or any problems, you can call us. If we need to contact the contractor on your behalf, we'll do that. If it's a situation like, well, they sent a guy out and I really didn't like that guy, can they send somebody else out? We're kind of not going to get involved.
No, that's not, no.
But if it's involving your project, absolutely, we're going to pick up the phone, go out and see them. I mean, all of us, that's what we spend our days going out and visiting contractors. So.
Okay, you talk about a change order.
Change order.
Okay, suppose you didn't get, that didn't take place, when there should be a change order. How do you deal with that?
Well, again, we're going to place 2 phone calls to you. So that's when you're going to go ahead and say, well, what about...
Hold on, you're saying you, the loan
My company,
officer,
our
or the
companies, Our companies are
contractors?
going to call you. No, our companies are going to call you.
Okay.
So you'll get a call from my offices in California. You'll get a call from California. Mrs. Smith, this is Kevin from, it won't be me, but this is Jane from Renew Financial. We've got your certificate of completion. We want to verify that you signed it and that you're happy with the job and there's, everything is good, and we're going to go ahead and pay the contractor if you're okay with that.
And suppose you're not happy with the job?
Well, then that's when we're going to see what it is, and we're going to reach out to the contractor and talk to the contractor and try to be the happy medium.
Are you going to come out to see the problem?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's my question.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I love my residents. Now the questions are coming.
Each, I guess, homeowner is assigned a particular representative that we have that communication, or is it whoever answers the phone?
Good. Go ahead.
At least for our call center, and when you call into the call center, we have one here in Doral, we have one in California. It's kind of a long robin, but within our system, we'll know everything about the project, so anyone that answers the phone can help you, and that's 7 days a week.
And something that we've just recently launched is we have what's called a contractor portal. And that's where the contractor goes in and submits all of his stuff, and he looks at your project information, everything else. We just rolled out a consumer portal, so that when you do go into a project, you're going to get an email from us asking you to create a password, and that's going to let you into the system so you can see exactly what's going on with your project. You can choose your interest rate, your payment, and so forth. So you are constantly in the know of what's going on with your project. You can also upload documents there, and you can also e-sign your documents from within inside the customer portal.
Before we get to the next question, good evening, everybody. My name is Chris Saunders. I'm here from the City Attorney's Office. I just want to kind of dovetail off of what's being said. If you remember, Mr. Silva and Mayor Messam had said, that if you're running into recurring problems, then that's when you need to notify the city. So we're talking about the lines of communications that are open. To your questions, ma'am, if you are continuing to reach out and you're dissatisfied with the job, but you're not getting any response, that's something that you would want to notify the city about, because the city does have some leverage in terms of the way that they deal with every contractor that's sitting here.
City has a lot of leverage. We get a call from the city, we jump on it.
Well, and I'd like to tag it on that. If you have a problem with any of us here, we're here right now. Please let us know. Some of us might not know if there is a problem. That's what I was trying to allude to. Let us know.
Right.
So if there is an issue and you have reached out to one of our companies, you're literally looking at 4 representatives of the company here. So if you're a current PACE client and you're having an issue with one of your projects, here's your opportunity. We're right here.
And we're all local.
Yeah. By all means, if you're currently a PACE, have a PACE project in Miramar that you're having an issue with, let us know. We're here.
Do we have any PACE clients in here right now? All right, so I have one. Someone had a question in the back. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I noticed that a lot of the reference is made to email and e-sign. What about some of our older residents that are not able to get access to such? Phones are not being answered.
Yeah, great question. The question is for homeowners who may not have access to emailing or computers. How are your respective companies positioned to service those homeowners?
So we will send the paperwork out, FedEx, where they'll need to sign, and at that point, unfortunately, you'll need to get notified. But even if you sign the documents online, at least with us, through e-sign, we still mail you out the copy of the documents so you can have them physically. But we can arrange from the office to send those over for a manual signature.
So we call it, we call it a wet signature. So yeah, you can sign it. We're going to ask that it be notarized because we obviously need to know who's signing it. Again, with our customer portal, you're not doing it through email. You're just logging into your website, so to speak, and just signing your documents from inside there.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
So is there a program in our city hall for citizens that don't have access, or a person that they could go to that can help them, so they could e-sign in the city office to get their paperwork done? But there are so many elderly citizens in Miramar that are not able to have access to these programs. I can pick up my phone quick and do it on,
Yes.
but some people can't. They want the old-fashioned way of using a phone and signing in front of somebody.
Well, a couple of ways to answer that question. First, if they're a senior and they're actively involved in the senior program that's here at the Multi-Service Center, we have social workers, we have city staff that can assist our seniors in those types of needs. Also, for any residents who may not necessarily be engaged with the city, there are other private service providers like mobile notaries that can come out to your home and do these notary services. It's just a phone call to order them, and so maybe perhaps, I'm not sure if the service providers actually work with mobile notaries to go out to perform these services. So if the resident has the ability to talk on the phone with the service providers and can share what their need is, that I don't have access to a notary, well, I like to request if a notary can be sent to my home, then I'm sure that those are different options. So there are different options. So the answer is yes. Seniors are actively involved with our program here, have resources that can assist them with some of these affairs, and the service providers may also have some resources as well.
For Wide Green, we do have 2 offices. It's in Miami-Dade, in Doral, and in Coconut Grove. You could walk into one of our offices and we could definitely help you there if need be. If you couldn't DocuSign, but you can make it down to Miami, to Coconut Grove or Doral, we can definitely help you in our offices. It would be the only other option. If you can't do it through FedEx, you definitely come to Miami and we can help you out there.
All right, so we'll take 1 or 2 more questions. Yes, ma'am.
What if your mortgage is modified and you're forced to have an escrow, like to pay your taxes? Does that increase your monthly payments?
It doesn't automatically, but we recommend that you do. So that's where, again, if you're not on top of that, whenever you do take on your assessment, we will recommend to you to go ahead and escrow and up your escrow, but that ultimately that responsibility lies on you. We can't force it. We don't deal with the mortgage company on that end, so it's not like I can call that bank and say, hey, up this escrow, this amount. It's up to you to look at your annualized payment, divide it by 12. That's your monthly, additional payment to your escrow, and call your mortgage company and say, hey, I just got a PACE assessment done. My monthly increase should be this. And they will say, sure, we'll start taking that out of your, adding that to the escrow. And that's what we recommend you do, honestly. If you escrow, that's what you should do, and you should start doing it as soon as you know what that amount is. So you don't wait, until that, a month prior to paying your taxes, you're like, oh my God, I have an extra, whatever, 1,000 annual, extra I have to add. So if you break it down to that monthly payment, that's when PACE really becomes to be a benefit to you.
Every lender out there knows PACE, so if you call up your lender and say, I have a PACE assessment, they know exactly what it is.
Yes, ma'am.
You said it's not based off of credit, but does it show up on your credit, like reflecting?
No.
No, ma'am.
No,
It is not a credit basis on your credit, and it doesn't affect your credit as a resident, as a private citizen, or as a business. So if you're doing a commercial project, it also doesn't affect the cash flow of the business because it's not on the business credit either. So, for you that might be doing a commercial deal, that's a big difference, a big benefit to PACE because, again, it doesn't touch your cash flow.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I was a little confused in the escrow. Is it something that when it's approved, we need to reach out to our lender?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, that's.
Hold on, wait. Finish the questioning because I'm
No, I
out
wanted to know if we need to reach out to the lender and initiate or increase our escrow payment to cover everything.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
You guys have a guideline on expenses on roofs and maybe solar system, what you're going for? You know, there a guideline on prices?
Yeah.
We have cost caps, which means, you know, we're not going to allow it to be overcharged.
Yes.
So it's got to be within specific guidelines, so that you can't be
You
overcharged.
guys are outsourcing these solar panels? I'm interested in solar.
Okay, I'm sorry, sir, what?
I'm interested in solar. You guys outsourcing these solar things? Because I mean, I know there's companies out there that are actually paying you a year worth of electricity to get the solar panel put in. Now, I know that's backed up or whatever the interest rate might be, but I mean, you
Yes,
guys offer
solar all day long, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Watch that.
Right, yeah.
Great question. Her question was.
Her question is that's the interest rate, or does it depend on the type of project? The terms of the interest rate, is it affected based off of the type of project you're doing?
Yeah, we have, you know, each item you're going to install, windows, so to speak, or air conditioning, they essentially have a shelf life. Okay, so for instance, windows and roof will finance up to 25 years. We know an air conditioning system typically is not going to last 25 years, so we're not going to finance it up to 25 years. We're going to finance it up to 15 years. So yes, it does depend upon the product that you're doing.
And I'll reiterate, and I think I understand what your question was on the interest rate. Contact, just call us. We'll tell you what the interest rate is on the terms and on the products.
All right, I don't see any more questions raised. Okay, well, I'm going to allow some new questioners to come, and yes, sir, you're recognized. Yes, you. Wayne.
What's the difference? How would you consider yourself different from City Financial or one of those financial?
Can I answer that?
That's an easy one.
May I answer that?
Yeah, could you, all right, repeat the question, so, because folks that want to.
Right. The gentleman asked, how are we different than a company called Synchrony? I can answer that because I compete against Synchrony, Green Sky, Wells Fargo, and every other unsecured company out there. We have 58 different products that we offer through Service Finance Company. So to answer that with one sentence isn't going to happen. Everybody in here has a different and a specific need. Some people may have an 800 credit score. Some people may not have a credit score at all. It all depends on what your specific needs are as a consumer. There's 12-month no interest, no payments and unsecured. It might not be what you're looking for. You know, PACE is its own different type of financial solution. So it really comes down to what your specific needs are and what the best needs are to fit that need.
And to take that a little bit further, so Synchrony is going to be very similar to even going out and getting a credit card. They're going to look at your credit score. The interest on a Synchrony is not going to be tax deductible. The IRS has not ruled as tax deductible. Let me go back to that and say, check with your tax advisor. And the rates are going to be nowhere near.
That's not true.
Okay, yeah. Okay, the rates.
That's untrue. We can't sit up here and tell false statements. It's not
Well, so individual recommendations and because what I don't want to have are marketing differences between products and service providers. I think for the benefit of the public is to provide information about the program, how it works, how it can be applied to various scenarios that may be in the audience, and for like those pinpointed questions in terms of the difference between the PACE program and another financing vehicle and what's more advantageous than others, I think would be more productive one-on-one with these individuals. I don't want to tit for tat to go back and forth. Okay, fair enough? Okay, so if you have another question?
So just want to get this clear. So you're going to pre-qualify the client, right? And then you're going to reach out to the contractor to see if we're interested, or how does that work?
I think the contractor can bring a client to any one of these. You can have a client and bring
You can approach one of our companies and say, hey, listen, I want to offer your financing to my clients. You just got to go ahead and get certified by all four of us if you want. Or as a homeowner, you can say, hey, my buddy Bill is my roofer. He's been doing roof work for my family for 50 years. And you can call us and say, hey, I want Bill to be my roofer. All right, we'll certify Bill. It might take a couple hours until we get all the paperwork, but there's two ways a contractor can get involved with PACE. Either you approach us and say, hey, I want to provide this financing for my clients to improve my business, to be able to improve, the financing that I offer my clients, or your homeowners can say, hey, I know my contractor and I want you all to be the guys that do work for us.
So none of you guys are going to send us clientele.
No, that's not, so yes, we will do that.
Yes.
So we do have lead programs because we get customers that call in without contractors. So yes, there is a possibility that Widegreen can offer you those customers. The way we do it is that we offer the homeowner at least 3 contractors so they can make an educated decision of who they want to use. We don't say, hey, go with ABC Roofing. It's just not fair to the homeowner. So then it kind of gives the homeowner the opportunity to get the best price for them. If they pick you, then we just assign that project to your company, then that's your client with us.
I just misunderstood. I just thought that you guys have been, everybody, all the residents of Miramar will come to you guys for financing. And then you guys would say, okay, you guys would email us and say, are you interested, once we pre-qualified, are you interested in doing this particular project for such and such? I didn't realize it was just my own customers, I'm bringing them to you.
It's both ways. It's both ways. It's both ways. I think based off what they're saying is, if a resident decides to go with any one of these companies, your company could be one of 2 other companies or 3 other companies that would be given to the homeowner, and the homeowner then has the choice to decide to use your company or not. Or if you have a client here in the city of Miramar who needs an air conditioning unit, well, gosh, I would love to replace my air conditioning unit. I just don't have the credit or the cash to pay you to do that. Because now you're working with all 4 of these companies as a qualified vendor. Now you have a solution for them to see, okay, you may want to look at one of these companies. They might be able to help you replace to pay for your funding.
So their standard is going to be lower than the competition, as I mentioned before. So, if this company is going to want such and such to qualify, you guys are going to be able to qualify them easier.
Yeah.
With their whole credit.
Yes.
Yes.
Good. All right. So, great evening. I hope that everyone felt that this session was beneficial, and now you've been more informed to be able to see if this program will work for you. And if so, our vendors are there available for you. We actually finished a little early, so there's enough time for residents, if you want to speak to the vendors or get their information, to call them back on a more one-on-one or talk to them later, then you can do that as well, all right?